The town of Belridge had always been a quiet place. Tucked between forgotten hills and heavy forests, it wore its silence like an old coat, worn, familiar, and lined with secrets. It was the kind of place people came to disappear, not to be remembered. And that was exactly why Logan Hayes came back. He hadn't set foot in Belridge in over 15 years, not since the mission, not since the fire. The town had changed in the ways all places do with time. New paint over old buildings, new names behind the same counters, but the air still carried that same mixture of pine and damp earth, the same slow heaviness that sank into the bones and refused to leave. Logan parked his dusty truck in front of a weathered 2-story cabin on the edge of town. It had belonged to his grandfather, a ranger like his namesake, long gone now. The roof needed work. The porch creaked, but it was safe, quiet, and that was enough. Beside him in the passenger seat, Rocco let out a low breath. The German Shepherd was nearly 10 now, old for a working dog, older for one that had served in 2 countries and been declared dead twice by paperwork that didn't care who it buried. His coat had dulled from black to steel gray in patches, and he moved with the stiff caution of someone who had seen too much. But his eyes still gleamed sharp as razors. Logan opened the door. Rocco jumped down, sniffed the earth, scanned the horizon. The dog's instincts were still intact, part animal, part soldier. He was trained to recognize scents, patterns, danger buried beneath silence. And Belridge, as peaceful as it looked, had always carried a strange weight. Rocco felt it. Logan felt it. They didn't unpack much. A duffel of clothes, a locked case of documents, and Rocco's worn-out bed that he refused to sleep on unless it was placed in front of a door. That night, Logan sat on the porch with a cold beer, staring out into the dark trees while Rocco laid beside him like a sentinel carved from muscle and memory. He hadn't planned to stay long, just enough to disappear again. But the past doesn't always let go, and some ghosts aren't content to stay dead. It started with the house on Weller Street. A fire. The news came through an old man at the diner, shaking his head while stirring too much sugar into coffee. "Whole place burned down before sunrise," he said. "Wasn't no accident neither." Logan didn't ask questions, he just listened. The name of the house's owner, Daniel Mercer, stuck in his mind like a splinter. Mercer had once served under Logan during an operation that had never officially existed. He was a signalman, quiet, obedient, and scared. They weren't supposed to keep in touch, but Logan remembered every face from that team. Mercer had secrets too. Rocco started growling that night. Not barking, growling. Low from the throat, ears flat, eyes aimed at the door. Logan grabbed his sidearm out of reflex and moved to the window. Nothing, just trees, just silence. But Rocco didn't stop until dawn. The next day, Logan walked into town. He bought supplies, wood for the porch, new boots, cigarettes he hadn't touched in years. At the hardware store, a woman named Mira Doyle approached him. She looked familiar, but Logan couldn't place her. "You're Hayes, right, Sergeant?" "Hayes?" she asked. Her voice was soft but laced with something sharper. Curiosity or suspicion, maybe both. He gave a tight nod. "Used to be. I read about your unit. Years ago. Blacklight Task Force. Most of the articles got scrubbed. Then, you read too much," he replied and walked out. That night, there was a note on his cabin door. Folded. No name. No handwriting, just a sentence. "They're watching. Don't let Rocco out alone." Logan didn't sleep. He sat by the door with his gun loaded and Rocco at his feet. The dog didn't growl this time. He just stared out the window, ears twitching, like he was remembering something, or expecting someone. By the third night, it escalated. Logan woke to the sound of breaking glass. Rocco was already moving, growling, snarling, hurling himself toward the back of the cabin. Logan followed, gun raised. The window over the sink was shattered inward. Outside, he caught the briefest flash of movement, dark clothes disappearing into trees. They were being watched or hunted. Logan didn't call the cops. He knew better. There were things buried in his past that no badge could protect him from. He needed to dig. He needed to know why Mercer had died, why Rocco was growling at empty space, and why someone wanted him to be afraid. He started by going back to what he had locked away. The case. Inside were files from the operation, the one from Kandahar, the bunker, the signature code Echo 9. It was supposed to be burned, but Logan had kept it. Insurance, he thought, or guilt. The documents weren't just mission briefings. They were communications logs, drone footage, personnel transfers, redacted pages with black bars over names he already knew. And one line stood out in all caps. Subject: Rocco detected unauthorized signal. Target neutralized. Logan sat back, heart pounding. It wasn't just about him. Rocco had seen something, had smelled something, and someone wanted that memory erased. The next morning brought frost on the grass and silence in the woods. Logan's coffee sat cold in his hands as he flipped through more of the old documents. The more he read, the more he realized Rocco hadn't just been a dog on that mission. He had identified something. Someone. And that someone had disappeared from every report, every chain of command, like they were never there at all. Logan snapped a photo of the most damning page and tucked it into his jacket. He wasn't sure who he could trust, but he knew who might still be watching: Mira Doyle. She wasn't just a curious local, she was a journalist. Her last piece had been published in an independent military ethics blog 5 years ago. Then, she'd gone dark. He found her at the library, hunched over microfilm like it was the 90s. She didn't look surprised when he approached. "You came back," she said, without looking up. "Didn't think you would." "Neither did I," Logan replied, placing the photo gently on the desk. "But they followed me here." She stared at the photo, her brow furrowing. That's not possible. This was classified years ago." "Everything gets unclassified eventually," he said, "or dug up by the wrong people." They sat in silence, surrounded by the dusty hum of machines. Rocco sat near the door, his ears twitching every few seconds. Mira finally spoke. "Do you have the rest?" Logan nodded. "I've got the case, but it's not safe to keep it here." "Bring it tonight," she whispered. "I know a place we can go through." That night, Logan didn't go to Mira's place directly. Something felt off. Rocco was pacing again, his nails clicking on the cabin floor. Logan opened the front door and stepped out onto the porch, and stopped. On the step sat a box. "No label, just tape." Rocco snarled, stepping in front of Logan. The soldier inside him kicked in. He scanned the area, then carefully opened the lid with a knife. Inside, a single item: Rocco's old canine service tag. Burned, blackened, and a note beneath it. "Some things should stay buried." Logan's blood froze. Someone knew. Someone who wasn't bluffing. He grabbed the files, loaded the truck, and drove to the address Mira had scribbled on a napkin, an old maintenance tunnel near the abandoned rail line. She was already there, flashlight in hand. "You were followed?" "Not yet," he said, "but we're running out of time." They laid out the documents across a rusted metal table. Mira scanned each page, her breath catching when she found the footage stills. This isn't just a botched op. This was a purge, a whole village erased. "Collateral damage," Logan muttered bitterly. "No, something else. Look, this drone footage. They hit the main compound first, then they circled back and hit a secondary target. Civilian housing. No heat signatures. Why? Would they waste a second pass?" Logan leaned in. The video showed Rocco in the corner of the frame, barking, alert, scratching the ground. He found something they didn't want us to see. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed down the tunnel. Then another. Mira snapped off her flashlight. "They found us," Logan whispered. Rocco was already at the tunnel entrance, snarling. Logan pulled his sidearm and pressed Mira behind a pillar. 3 figures appeared in the darkness. Black gear, no insignias, suppressed rifles. "Run," Logan ordered. Take the files. Get to the old ranger station at Pine Hollow. I'll hold them off. I'm not leaving you. You are. Go. The gunfight in the tunnel was brutal, chaotic. Muffled shots, ricochets off concrete. Rocco lunged through the smoke, a blur of motion and teeth. He took down one attacker before being thrown back by the butt of a rifle. Logan fired 3 rounds, dropping the second man. The third hesitated, then vanished into the shadows. Silence fell. Logan limped over to Rocco. The dog stood, bleeding. From the ear, but alive. You're not done yet, buddy, Logan whispered. Not yet. They left the tunnel just before the reinforcements arrived. The town was no longer safe. The cabin was no longer safe. Everything pointed to one final location, where it had all started, Kandahar, Operation Echo 9. The last surviving member of their unit, Captain Elias Ward. If anyone knew what was buried in that village, it was him. But Elias had vanished 2 years ago. Or so they said. Logan stared at the map pinned to the motel wall. Rocco lay at his feet, tail thumping weakly. You ready for one more mission? The dog looked up as if to say, I never stopped. They crossed 3 states in 2 days, avoiding highways using cash only, sleeping in abandoned ranger stations and under the stars. Mira stayed in contact via encrypted texts, sending coordinates and updates from Pine Hollow. She had scanned the files. Everything was there. Enough to blow the lid off the operation. Enough to get them both killed. In a dusty safe house on the edge of New Mexico, Logan finally caught a break. An old contact, operative named Holt, replied to a burner message. He was out, living under a new name, but he knew where Ward had gone. Not dead. Not missing. Recruited. By a private defense group known only as Vantix. Logan had heard the name before. Rumors mostly. Black site funding. Unregistered kill lists. They operated in shadows the government pretended didn't exist. And if Ward was with them, that meant he wasn't just a witness. He was a threat. They reached a decommissioned airfield 2 nights later. Holt was waiting in a trailer, armed but calm. You brought the dog, he said. He's the reason we're not dead, Logan replied. Then let's make sure he stays that way. Inside the trailer, Holt pulled down a map, tapping a region deep in. The Sierra Nevada. Ward's here. Private compound, light defenses. You've got a window of 30 minutes when the night shift changes. Logan studied the terrain. Steep ridges, narrow access road, one way in. What happens if we get caught? Holt smiled grimly. They won't call the police. They'll dig a new hole. Rocco sat by the door, head tilted. The tension in the room vibrated in his muscles. He knew this wasn't just a mission. This was the end of a trail that had started in fire and silence. They approached the compound under cover of night. Mira had joined them, the files safely stored in a secure cloud and backup drives. She had one job: get the confession. Logan would get them inside. Using an old infiltration route from his service days, Logan breached the perimeter. Rocco led the way, silent as a shadow. They slipped past cameras, between spotlights, and under the blind eyes of the compound's digital security. Inside the command building, Ward's office glowed faintly. Logan forced the lock, stepped inside, and froze. Ward sat at the desk, unshaven, pale, and armed. I wondered when you'd come, he said, gun raised but trembling. You tried to bury the past, Logan replied. But it clawed back up. Ward's eyes flicked to Rocco, then to Mira. He lowered the gun slowly. It wasn't supposed to be like that. They told me we were securing intel, not executing civilians. Then why lie? Mira asked. Why fake your death? Because I knew too much, and I knew they'd come for me eventually, just like they came for you. Rocco growled, stepping between Logan and the door. There were footsteps outside, fast, tactical. They followed you here, Ward said. You led them right to us! A gunshot rang out. Mira screamed. Logan pulled her down. Glass shattered. The walls exploded into dust as armed figures breached from 3 sides. It was a kill team. Vantix wanted to erase them all. Logan fired blind, over the desk. Ward hit a panic switch, locking the doors. Rocco lunged into the fray, snapping, biting, pushing Logan and Mira toward the rear exit. Ward was hit. Chest, then head. Gone in a flash, Mira cried out but kept moving. Logan kicked open a rear panel and shoved her through. "Go!" he shouted. "I'll cover you!" Rocco turned, growled, but obeyed. He bolted after Mira as Logan held the hall. The building burned. Screams. Smoke. Gunfire. Then silence. They made it to the ridge. Bleeding, breathless, broken. Logan collapsed beside Rocco. Mira sobbed into her sleeve. "We have the files. We have the story," Logan said hoarsely. Rocco whimpered softly, licking a wound. On his leg, the dog was hurt, but alive. "Now," Logan added, looking out into the night, "we finish it." They didn't stop driving until the sun came up over the Nevada desert. Mira had wrapped Rocco's leg in gauze, her hands trembling as she pressed down to stop the bleeding. Inside the command building, Ward's office glowed faintly. Logan forced the lock, stepped inside, and froze. Ward sat at the desk, unshaven, pale, and armed. "I wondered when you'd come," he said, gun raised but trembling. "You tried to bury the past," Logan replied. "But it clawed back up." Ward's eyes flicked to Rocco, then to Mira. He lowered the gun slowly. "It wasn't supposed to be like that. They told me we were securing intel, not executing civilians." "Then why lie?" Mira asked. "Why fake your death?" "Because I knew too much, and I knew they'd come for me eventually, just like they came for you." Rocco growled, stepping between Logan and the door. There were footsteps outside, fast, tactical. "They followed you here," Ward said. "You led them right to us." A gunshot rang out. Mira screamed. Logan pulled her down. Glass shattered. The walls exploded into dust as armed figures breached from 3 sides. It was a kill team. Vantix wanted to erase them all. Logan fired blind, over the desk. Ward hit a panic switch, locking the doors. Rocco lunged into the fray, snapping, biting, pushing Logan and Mira toward the rear exit. Ward was hit. Chest. Then head. Gone in a flash. Mira cried out but kept moving. Logan kicked open a rear panel and shoved her through. "Go!" he shouted. "I'll cover you!" Rocco turned, growled, but obeyed. He bolted after Mira as Logan held the hall. The building burned. Screams. Smoke. Gunfire. Then silence. They made it to the ridge. Bleeding. Breathless. Broken. Logan collapsed beside Rocco. Mira sobbed into her sleeve. "We have the files. We have the story," Logan said hoarsely. Rocco whimpered softly, licking a wound. On his leg, the dog was hurt, but alive. "Now," Logan added, looking out into the night, "we finish it." They didn't stop driving until the sun came up over the Nevada desert. Mira had wrapped Rocco's leg in gauze, her hands trembling as she pressed down to stop the bleeding. Logan's left arm had a deep graze, the pain dulled by adrenaline and loss. Captain Ward was dead. Again. But this time it was real. They found a motel on the edge of a truck stop. No cameras, no questions. Logan paid cash and carried Rocco into the room himself. The dog whimpered once, then went quiet, curling into a corner. Mira sat on the bed, staring at the drive in her hand. "We have it all," she whispered. "The logs, the missions, the names, even the coded conversations, but they'll come again," Logan finished. "And harder." Mira looked up at him. "Then we go public. Live. No more hiding. If we die, we die loud." Logan nodded. "Tonight, but we do it from somewhere safe. Somewhere they can't jam us." "I know a place," she said. An old emergency broadcast station. My father used to maintain it. It's off-grid. It still works. They left before sunset, loaded Rocco gently in the back. The station sat at the peak of Pine Bluff, a radio tower swallowed by fog and old memories. It had once broadcasted weather alerts and missing persons bulletins. Now it would carry the truth. Mira set up the equipment. Logan stood at the window, watching the road below. Rocco lay at his feet, alert despite the pain. The broadcast went live at 8:03 p.m. "This is Mira Doyle," she said, her voice steady but strained. "If you're hearing this, then you still believe in accountability, in truth. What we're about to share isn't conspiracy, it's confession. Documents, footage, and names connected to a series of covert military actions, known internally as Echo 9. Operations that violated every ethical and moral code we claim to uphold." She paused, looked at Logan. He nodded once. "Tonight, we expose the files they tried to bury, and the people they tried to bury with them." As she spoke, Logan uploaded the drive's contents to multiple independent servers, whistleblower forums, and encrypted journalist hubs. Every second mattered. Every word pressed into history before someone tried to erase it. At 8:11 p.m., headlights appeared on the dirt road. Logan swore. "They're here!" "The upload's not done," Mira cried. "2 more minutes." Echo 9 was no longer a shadow. It was public. It was damning, and it could no longer be denied. Logan and Mira watched it unfold from a safe house in Montana, deep in the forests where no GPS could trace them. They were ghosts again. Only, this time, ghosts who had struck back. But nothing came without cost. Rocco's body had been buried beneath a pine tree just behind the old ranger station. Logan had dug the grave himself. Every motion slow, deliberate, as if he could postpone. The inevitable by sheer will. There was no ceremony, no flag, just Logan, Mira, and a collar placed carefully on the mound of fresh dirt. A hand-carved plaque stood at the head of the grave. Rocco, soldier, guardian, brother. Mira found Logan on the porch that evening, staring into the woods. He hadn't spoken much since the broadcast. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded once. "We did the job. That's what matters." "It's not just a job, Logan. He gave everything." Logan's jaw tightened. "He always did. From the first day. He didn't follow orders. He followed me. Even when I didn't deserve it." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "People know now. You gave them that. He gave them that." Silence fell again, thick with unspoken grief. In the distance, a bird called out once, then again. Then, and the woods fell quiet once more. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived at a secure drop box Mira had created. It bore no return address. Inside was a medal, one never officially awarded to animals. A medal for valor, for sacrifice. Alongside it, a single sentence typed in clean font. "He was more than a soldier. He was the last good thing we had." Logan didn't show anyone the letter. He placed the medal on the grave, pressed his hand to the soil, and whispered, "They saw you, boy. They finally saw you." Months passed. Mira returned to journalism, invited now to speak on ethics panels and war crimes investigations. Her voice, once ignored, now held weight. Logan remained in the woods. He built a life with fewer walls, more silence. He didn't run anymore. He had nothing to run from. The ghosts had been named. But every year, on the same date, he returned to that grave, brought a fresh collar, a new story, and sat in silence for hours. One fall morning, he sat with a thermos of coffee beside Rocco's resting place. He spoke, aloud, not expecting a reply, not needing one. "They offered to bring me back into service," he said with a small smirk. "Told them I already served with the best, no replacements." He looked up as the sun broke through the trees. The warmth touched the bronze plaque, making it shimmer like it was still alive. You didn't just save me, Rocco. You reminded me why we fight. Not for orders, not for stripes, for people, for the ones no one sees coming. He stood slowly, knees creaking, placed a fresh stick near the grave. Just in case you're still around, figured you'd want something to chase. Then, for the first time in a long time, Logan smiled. Not because the world was better, but because one dog's loyalty had made it less broken. He walked back toward the cabin, the morning mist parting gently around him. Behind him, a gust of wind stirred the trees. The collar chimed softly on the grave like a bell, one final salute. And in that moment, for just a breath of time, Logan didn't feel alone. Some bonds never break, and some shadows never fall in vain.